Have you ever felt that your value went unnoticed? That your presence, so constant and sincere, was just a detail for someone who should have noticed it before? It's strange, isn't it? Spending so much time being that safe haven, that point of balance, only to be noticed later. The late perception of someone can bring a mix of feelings that we don't always know how to name. It's as if the recognition, finally coming, can't erase the echo of the silence you've carried for so long. Now, she has understood. The pieces have finally fallen into place in the mind of someone who always seemed to look at you without really seeing you. Maybe it was something subtle, almost imperceptible, that sparked this new clarity. A gesture, a word spoken so long ago and now resonates as a truth she can no longer ignore. But what about you? Where does this leave you? This moment, which should bring satisfaction, arrives loaded with doubts. Is this realization too late? Can everything you've endured, the emptiness, the waiting, the silent nights, simply be left behind? There is a resentment she may never understand, a pain you knew alone while she took time to recognize something that was always in front of her. And it's not just about time. It's about effort, about how much you gave without receiving, how much you allowed yourself to be vulnerable while it seemed that none of this mattered. Now that she finally sees, it's not just relief you feel. There's also a twinge of resistance, of wanting to protect what remains of you after everything. After all, why only now? What changed? Was it your absence that spoke louder, or did life somehow force this person to face what she had been avoiding? The truth is, you were always enough. You never needed external validation to prove it, but it's hard not to wonder why it took so long. It's as if, no matter how much you want to embrace this moment, something inside you still hesitates, as if reopening the doors were just as frightening as keeping them closed. Now, the choice is yours. Don't rush. Don't let this late realization push you into quick decisions. Acknowledge your worth, the path you've walked up to now, and ask yourself, what do I really want? Not what she wants, not what seems fair or expected, but what resonates with what you need right now. If you decide that there is room to reconnect, that there is still something to be built, do it without haste. Let it be at a pace that respects your pains, your doubts, your conditions. And if you feel that time cannot be recovered, that the wear and tear was greater than what she now has to offer, that's okay too. You don't need to accept less than you deserve just because she finally understood. The most important thing is that you don't lose yourself. This situation should not revolve solely around her, about the perception she now has. Let it revolve around you. Ask yourself, what do you want to carry forward? What will bring you peace and not just answers? Because at the end of the day, the greatest achievement you can have is to look in the mirror and recognize yourself as someone who chose themselves, who, despite all the doubts, all the wounds, still managed to honor who they are. You are here now, on the brink of a choice that could change everything. It's not an exaggeration to say this, because the moment you're living is not just about someone else realizing your worth. It's about you, facing your own wounds, your own limits, and deciding what to do with all of it. I know that deep down the questions seem to scream. Has she really changed? Does she understand this time? And perhaps even more difficult, can you forget everything that happened to try to start over? Because, at its core, it's not just about forgiveness. It's about knowing if you're willing to reopen a part of yourself that you had to close off to protect yourself. But let's talk about you, about everything you have lived through up to this point. You were a pillar. Even when no one seemed to notice, you were there. In the words she didn't understand, in the gestures she ignored, in the time you offered without expecting anything in return. And that was not a small thing. It was your energy, your care, your presence. It was you, wholly, trying to be enough for someone who seemed never to look directly at what you had to offer. And do you know what's the hardest part of all this? The fact that you did it because you wanted to, because you saw something in her that perhaps even she didn't see. And now that she has awakened, that she has recognized what you are, you can't just pretend that nothing happened. Because it did happen, you felt it. You emptied yourself at times, trying to compensate for the absence of reciprocity. You held on tight while she seemed distracted, while you insisted on staying and she didn't seem to notice. That wore you out. It tired you. And now, even if her words bring some validation, they don't erase the weight of what you carried. The question is, what now? It doesn't matter what she feels, what she says, what she promises. What matters is what you feel, what you need. If you allow yourself to look inward, you'll realize that this choice is not just about her. It's about understanding what is still possible, what is still healthy, what still makes sense for you. Maybe you're thinking of trying. There is a part of you that still believes that people can change, that time can heal, that her effort now, even if late, deserves to be considered. If that's what you feel, it's okay. But take it slow. Her acknowledgement cannot erase your conditions, your limits. If this connection is to be resumed, let it be with balance. Let her know that she needs to act, that she needs to commit, that she needs to build what was missing before. Because you are no longer going to carry everything alone. But on the other hand, maybe you feel that it's too late. And if that's the case, know that there is no shame in it. There is no bitterness in deciding that you don't want to try anymore. Sometimes the hurt is greater than the desire to move forward with this person. Sometimes what you have been through has left marks that cannot be erased, and that's okay. This does not make you a resentful person, nor does it mean that you do not forgive. It just means that you have learned to prioritize yourself, to take care of your peace, to protect what is left of you. Be honest with yourself. Look at what you feel now. Don't try to force yourself into something just because it seems right. Right does not exist here. What exists is what makes you feel good, what you can carry, what will not exhaust you once again. You have already given a lot, given up so much, tried so hard to maintain something that for so long seemed only yours. Now you have the right to choose what you want, and more importantly, what you don't want. And you know what's most powerful about all this? The fact that today, the power is with you. It is no longer about waiting for her to understand, for her to see, for her to value. She saw, she understood, and now it is up to you to decide what to do with that. You don't need to hurry. You don't need to have all the answers now. Just allow yourself to feel what needs to be felt, without ignoring any part of yourself. Anger, sadness, hope, fear. All of this is part of it, and all of this is valid. But there's one thing you cannot forget: your worth. You didn't get this far by chance. You were able to love, to care, to be present, even without being sure you would be reciprocated. That shows the strength you have. It shows how rare you are. And that's exactly why now you can set boundaries. Because your worth is not in being tireless, in always saying yes, in being available for someone who took too long to realize who you are. Your worth lies in being who you are, without needing to mold yourself to fit anyone's expectations. If you decide to try again, do it with awareness. Make it clear that this time you won't accept less than you deserve, that things need to be different, that she needs to act, not just talk, because words are easy, promises can sound beautiful, but what really matters are actions. And if she truly understood, she'll show it, she'll prove it, and you don't need to rush to believe it. Take as much time as necessary, because this time the priority is you. And if you decide you don't want to continue, that you want to move on without her, that's okay. You are not obligated to give a new chance just because she finally realized what she lost. Sometimes absence speaks louder than any presence. And if that's the case, choose what brings you peace. Choose what frees you. Because in the end, her recognition is a reflection of what she feels, of what she understands now. But your choice needs to reflect what you feel, what you understand about yourself. You are not invisible, you never were. Even in moments when it seemed like no one was watching, you were there, constant, steady. And that is proof of who you are. Someone who truly loves, who gives all, who believes. But also someone who now understands that love cannot be a one-way street. That no matter how much you have given, you also deserve to receive. So what are you going to do now? It doesn't matter what the answer is. What matters is that you do this for yourself, not for her. That you make a decision that respects your heart, your limit, your truth. Because in the end, that's what will matter. Not what she realized too late, but what you decided to do with what you always knew. That you deserve more. You always did. You spent so much time waiting for something, didn't you? A gesture, a word, a look that would validate everything you already knew about yourself, but seemed impossible for the other to see. Now that this has finally happened, You realize that her recognition is, at most, a starting point, never the final destination. Because the real issue isn't about her, but about you. What are you feeling at this moment? That's the question that needs to resonate within you. Don't try to stifle it with the expectation of starting over, or the fear of losing something. Feel it all. Make space for every emotion, no matter how contradictory it may seem, to take its place. There might be timid relief, as if part of the weight you carried alone is now shared, but along with it, there might be latent hurt, the feeling that this realization came too late. There is also distrust, whispering that pretty words aren't enough, that time might reveal true intentions. And it's okay to feel all of this at once. These feelings are not signs of weakness. They are evidence of everything you've been through. You are not creating barriers out of whim. You are protecting what's left after all that was neglected. Don't ignore these internal voices. They have something to tell you. But now, more than ever, it is time to redefine what comes next. Her belated realization doesn't obligate you to anything. It doesn't force you to go back, to forgive unconditionally, or to pretend that nothing happened. On the contrary, it gives you the right to take control of the situation. The choice for the first time is entirely yours, and that freedom can be daunting, but it's also a silent relief. If you choose to give her another chance, take it slow. Remember, a true relationship isn't built on empty promises or momentary regrets. It requires effort, intention, and consistent actions, demonstrating that this time she is willing to do things differently. Most importantly, it needs to respect the pace you set. Don't rush to open all the doors. Open just a crack, enough to see if the changes are real. If there's hesitation, if actions don't match words, you will have the right and the strength to step back. And it's not because you are relentless or cruel. It's because you have learned to value what you carry within yourself. You now know that you no longer need to sacrifice to be seen, that you're not obligated to accept crumbs or superficial gestures just because the other person has finally seemed to awaken. But if you choose not to continue with her, know that this is also an act of self-love. The decision to walk away is not a sign of weakness or bitterness. It is the realization that sometimes what has been broken cannot be repaired, no matter how hard both parties try. Time can heal, but it doesn't erase the scars. And if you feel that these scars are too deep for something new to flourish, respect that. Respect yourself. Don't force yourself to build something on the ruins of a past that still hurts. The choice to say no is also a choice to say yes to other possibilities, to other connections, to other encounters, to other versions of yourself that no longer need to carry the weight of being invisible to those who should have seen you from the beginning. Regardless of the path, the lesson here is clear. You are no longer in the place of waiting. This perception of hers cannot be the basis of your identity. You have always been more than that, and now is the time to finally recognize it with all the depth that this truth deserves. There is no longer room for doubts about your worth. There is no longer room to be treated as an option, or as someone who can be sidelined until the other is ready to see. Because now, the one who needs to be ready is you. Ready to stand firm, even when emotions try to pull you into impulsive decisions. Ready to listen to yourself, even if it means silencing the other's voice. Ready to accept that her recognition is just confirmation of what you already knew. And ready, above all, to decide what to do with it. Time can be an ally, but it can also be a test. What she does now, and how you feel about it, is what really matters. Don't worry about rushing things or pleasing others. The only commitment you have now is to yourself, and that is liberating. Because finally you understand that your worth was never in someone else's hands. And if it means moving on alone, let it be with your head held high. If you choose to walk away, do so not as one who loses, but as one who decides not to accept less than you deserve. This decision may hurt at first, but it will also be the foundation of a greater, deeper freedom. Because by freeing yourself from those who took so long to realize what you are, you also open yourself to new possibilities. Not just of relationships, but of a new relationship with yourself. Remember, your worth was never at stake. What was at stake was her ability to see. And now that she sees, it's no longer up to you to prove anything. Her role will be to act. Yours will be to decide. And there is no right or wrong in this choice. What exists is what makes sense to you, and that no one but you can define. This is the moment to be true to yourself, to recognize how far you have walked until now, how much you have carried, how much you have given. To look back not with regret but with the certainty that all of this has brought you to this moment, to this point of choice. So take a deep breath. Look at yourself with honesty and kindness. Recognize your effort, your pains, your achievements, and then ask yourself, what comes next? The answer may not be clear now, but little by little, it will come. Because deep down, you already know what you deserve, and now it is your turn to decide what to do with that. You have always had the power to decide what you deserve. Now more than ever, choose what respects your truth and protects your peace. Share in the comments. What would you do in this situation? Your story matters. Leave a like if this message resonated with you and subscribe to the channel to keep reflecting on topics that touch the heart. Your voice makes a difference here.